left it off with teach your children these laws, these statutes, these ways. God got to show Moses the land, even though he couldn't cross over. He got to see the promised land. He passes away, and then Joshua is passed the torch. Well, now he sends over a couple over spies, and just kind of scout things out, see how things are, and bring back a report and see what they can do and what they're able to, and pray to God about it. They send the spies over. They show up at Jericho. They get in. Well, now the people or the guardsmen or whatever of Jericho's already picked it up. It's like, hey, those guys are not us. They're those Israelites that we keep hearing about, and they're over here now. We got to get rid of these guys. Well, they show up to Rahab. Rahab hides them, and they make a promise of Rahab in the covenant. It's like, hey, look. She asked them, hey, if I let you go, could you spare my family now? I was okay. Well, so here's the deal. Bring all your family under one household. Tie this cord. If you don't do this and something happens to them, it's not on our card. We told you what you're supposed to do, and you do it this way. If you don't, that's on you. But she does let them out. They hide, and then they come back to give the report. Now, they're about to cross over Jordan. Now, does anybody have any questions or comments about what we've read so far since our last meeting? Okay, well, we'll go on to 3. It says, then Joshua rose early in the morning, and they set out from Achaia Grove and came to the Jordan. He and all the children of Israel had lodged there before they crossed over. So it was after 3 days that the officers went through the camp, and they commanded the people, saying, when you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, and the priests, the Levites, bearing it, ye shall set out from your place and go after it. Now, they still, when they've been wandering for 40 years, they had like a setup how they went. One tribe followed the other tribe, one tribe led this tribe, one tribe stayed in the back. So they were going to follow this order as they're crossing over. And mind you, they've grown over the last 40 years too. So you got this massive force here about to cross over this Jordan. And also, all these other inhabitants heard about what happened in Egypt. Heard what happened to Moab and all of them throughout the process. So not only that they've heard that these great, wonderful, powerful things that God was doing, but they also see this massive force about to cross over the Jordan, because Israelites, they had every male that was capable, that was able to fight, was armed and ready. So all the way up to, forgot the age limit again, but from a certain age to a certain age. So that was a good mass of people. So we continue on to verse 4. It says, Yet there shall be a space between you and it, about 2,000 cubits per measure. Do not come near it, that you may know the way by which you must go, for you have not passed this way before. And Joshua said to his people, sanctify yourselves, for tomorrow the Lord will do wonders among you. Then Joshua spoke to the priests, saying, take up the ark of the covenant, cross over before the people. So they took up the ark of the covenant and went before the people. And the Lord said to Joshua this day, I will begin to exalt you in the sight of all Israel, that they may know that as I was with Moses, so I will be with you. You shall command the priests who bear the ark of the covenant, saying, when you have come to the edge of the water of the Jordan, you shall stand in the Jordan. So Joshua said to the children of Israel, come here and hear the words of the Lord your God. And Joshua said, by this you shall know that the living God is among you, and that he will without fail drive out all before you, the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, sounds like a bunch of parasites, and then Girgasites, and the Amorites and Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is crossing over before you into Jordan. Now therefore, take for yourselves 12 men from the tribes of Israel, one man from every tribe, and it shall come to pass as soon as the soles of the feet of the priests who bear the ark of the Lord of the earth, shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, that the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off, and the waters shall come from upstream, and they shall stand as a heap. So here, God has already told Moses or Joshua how this is going to happen. Send them out before them, and as they cross over Jordan, what's going to happen? It's going to kind of stop the water. He's kind of parting the Jordan again, like he did in the Red Sea. Does anybody have any questions or comments about any of this so far? Okay, well, we'll continue right along then. So it was, when the people set out from the camp to cross over the Jordan, with the priests bearing the ark of the covenant before the people, and as those who bore the ark came to the Jordan, and the feet of the priests who bore the ark dipped in the edge of the water, for the Jordan overflows all its banks during the whole time of the harvest. So by this time, I'm assuming that it's saying that it's starting to overflow its banks. So it's overflowed. But the waters which came down from upstream stood still, and rose in a heap very far away at Adam, the city that is beside Zertan. So the water that went down into the sea of Aram, the salt sea, failed, and were cut off, and the people crossed over opposite Jericho, and the priest who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord stood firmly on dry ground in the midst of the Jordan, and all Israel crossed over on dry ground until all the people had crossed completely over Jordan. So once again, God does another wonder or miracle as they cross over Jordan. He stops the river at one point, and then they have dry ground as they crossed over. So once again, he's doing his works, doing his wonders, and I'm sure there's people probably maybe seeing it from afar. I was like, well, this is crazy, because the people downstream is going to notice the water stop coming. The people upstream notice the water's not flowing. So it's once again, he's still continuing doing his work, and it's amazing. I really enjoy reading Joshua as he does his work through here, really. Does anybody have any questions or comments about chapter 3 at all? Okay, we'll continue on verse 4, or chapter 4. And it came to pass when all the people had completely crossed over the Jordan, and the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, Take for yourselves 12 men from the people, 1 man from every tribe, and commanded them, saying, Take for yourselves 12 stones from here, out of the midst of the Jordan, from the place where the priest's feet stood firm. You shall carry them over with you, and leave them in the lodging place where you lodge tonight. And Joshua called 12 men whom he had appointed from the children of Israel, 1 man of every tribe. And Joshua said to them, Cross over before the ark of the Lord your God into the midst of Jordan, and each one of you take up a stone on a shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of Israel, that this may be a sign among you, when your children ask in time to come, saying, What do these stones mean to you? And you shall answer them, that the waters of Jordan were cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed over the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off, and these stones shall be a memorial to the children of Israel forever. So once again, God's gave them a reminder to get these rocks out here. This is a reminder. So when someone asks, well, what are those stones for? Well, that's when God stopped the river so we can cross over Jordan. So it's once again a reminder, which, like we all know, He's told them, hey, teach them my statutes, my ways, my laws. I want them to know who I am and what I've done to get them to this point. And once again, He's given them another reminder. So, hey, get these stones out, because I'm assuming when they said throw them on the shoulder, I'm assuming they're bigger stones at the bottom of the Jordan. And I'm sure if, like most river stones or stones that come out of the rivers, they're kind of smooth. They're different from rocks that's sitting above the ground. So you can probably tell that they're from the bottom of the river. So they're going to see that and be like, okay, so what are these stones here for? Well, that's when God parted the waters, I guess parted the waters, stopped it, and we could cross over, and we're over here today. God kept His promise, and He kept doing His wonders all the way through, well, still to continue into this day. Anybody have any questions or comments about any of that? Okay, we'll continue on in verse 8. And it says, And the children of Israel did so, just as Joshua commanded, and took up 12 stones from the midst of the Jordan, as the Lord had spoken to Joshua, according to the number of tribes of the children of Israel, and carried them over with them to the place where they lodged, and laid them down there. Then Joshua set up 12 stones in the midst of Jordan, in the place where the feet of the priest who bore the ark and the covenant stood, and they are there to this day. So in other words, no one touched them. They're still there. No one's supposed to have moved them. And so verse 10 says, So the priest who bore the ark stood in the midst of the Jordan until everything was finished, as the Lord had commanded Joshua to speak to the people according to all that Moses had commanded Joshua. And the people hurried and crossed over. When it came to pass, when all the people had completely crossed over, that the ark of the Lord and the priest crossed over the presence of the people. And the men of Reuben and the men of Gad and half the tribe of Manasseh crossed over, armed before the children of Israel, as Moses spoken to them. About 40,000 prepared for war crossed over before the Lord for battle to the plains of Jericho. On that day the Lord exalted Joshua in the sight of all Israel, that they feared him as they had feared Moses all the days of his life. So now, God kind of does, let's say, a similar miracle, what He did for Moses. He did something with the water. He didn't necessarily part the sea, but He stopped the river. So they're going to see that Moses, the torch has been passed to Joshua. So Joshua's following what God tells him to do. And now people are going to respect him as a leader and see that he's a leader just as Moses was. Because we all know that these were stiff-necked people with Moses. So imagine if Joshua wasn't seen as a leader, they'd probably be even worse for Joshua. So now they see him as, okay, the Lord did pass the torch to Joshua here. We see this now. We could listen to him and understand what's going on, because they delegated one individual, and that was Moses, and Moses passed the torch to Joshua. All right. Any comments or questions?
That the Lord magnified Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
Showed the people who he was, and he's going to be the next leader.
Mm-hmm.
When they followed Moses, they feared him because of God.
Mm-hmm.
They still did some things they didn't like.
Mm-hmm.
And got in trouble.
And people still to this day, as we go along, as we read along, when folks were told to bring all these articles, all these spools, do something with it, like burn it down or something like that. Some people kept things that they probably shouldn't have kept, or did things with things they shouldn't have done with. Even through, and we're going to probably see that here again soon, if I do recall. So it's just, like you said, even when they feared them and respected them, they still, it's in our human nature though, they still kind of went against them. So imagine if God didn't magnify Joshua through this instance. They may be harder to lead than they would be if he didn't magnify him. All right, verse 15. So the Lord spoke to Joshua, saying, command the priests who bear the ark of the testimony to come up from the Jordan. Joshua therefore commanded the priests to say, come up from the Jordan. And it came to pass, when the priests who bore the ark of the covenant of the Lord had come from the midst of the Jordan, and the soles of the priests' feet touched the dry land, and the waters of the Jordan returned to their place and overflowed all of its banks as before. And when the people who came up from the Jordan on the 10th day of the first month, and they came to Gilgal on the east border of Jericho, and those 12 stones which they took out of the Jordan Joshua set up in Gilgal. Then he spoke to the children of Israel, saying, when your children ask their fathers in time to come, saying, what are these stones? When you shall let your children know, saying, Israel crossed over this Jordan on dry land. And Lord your God dried up the waters of the Jordan before you until you had crossed over, as the Lord your God did to the Red Sea, which he dried up before us until he had crossed over, that all the peoples of the earth may know the hand of the Lord that is mighty, that you may fear the Lord your God forever. Once again, they made sure that everybody knew what these stones represented. So if he mentioned it a few times, he's really trying to make a point that these were here for as a memorial, not a worship thing. It's a reminder, because we have tendency to worship things we probably shouldn't worship, which I can imagine. Some people will be worshiping these stones. Well, we crossed over the Jordan. No, it was a reminder. It's a reminder. Just like the songs they sing, the laws they teach, the stories that they tell each other about these things. It's a reminder. Because I have a feeling that if they didn't make it quite clear, somebody would be worshiping those stones at some point.
That's what happened with the brazen serpent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Put up there for the healing, and then they begin to worship the serpent.
Exactly.
Yeah, people have a tendency to do that.
Yeah, they do. So once again, it was a reminder. This is a reminder, not a thing to worship, a reminder. When they ask, this is what this was. These stones don't have the power. They are a memorial to the one who has the power, who did the things for us to do these things at this point. All right, for chapter 5. Yes, sir. I don't think he was related to him. Was Joshua related to Moses? Yeah, they were two different tribes, though. So, not a direct descendant to each other. Not. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. No, it's okay. I think, like John Tommy said, they were from two different tribes, so they were Joshua and Moses. They was asking if they was related. Yeah. Yeah.
But it was a family. It was 12 tribes, and that was a family. All of this stayed within those 12.
Mm-hmm.
God had all these things to happen, but it stayed within the 12 tribes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, that's probably more likely. I mean, Israelites, I'm sure they were overlooked because they did stem from the 12. So yeah, they're distant cousins. I would assume at that point. not like a first cousin or nephew or anything like that. But he did. God did pick Joshua. Yes, sir. God picked Joshua, and it's like, hey, Joshua's the one. Get ready to pass him the torch, and that's what the last part of Deuteronomy was really discussing about was, well, yeah, teach your people this, but also setting up Josh for the next leader is what Joshua is the next leader. So yes, Joshua was the one that God picked.
Like sometimes those things, it's different what people think it ought to be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in this, probably a lot of people thought Moses' successor would be from the priesthood. God picked him from the middle tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So
That he
God
did.
can do what he wants to do, when he wants to do, how he wants to do, and it's going to be right.
And the thing is, Joshua was faithful to God even when they first visited the Jordan. When they crossed over, Joshua and his partner was the one that brought back the reports that they were what, hey, we can do this. God has got on our side, and the people refused. So Joshua was definitely, the Lord had his eye on time at that point, especially when he showed like that he's willing to do what God told him to do. So because he was willing to do what needed to be done. So
I may be wrong about which tribe Joshua was from, because
I have to
I was
look.
thinking about Caleb. Caleb was from the Jewish tribe.
That is right. I have to.
Joshua may have been from the Levite tribe.
I have to look back at it just to be sure because I can't remember. I have to look back because I can't remember. But then again, I don't think he would send over because Joshua was one of the spies they sent over though. So I don't think they would send a Levite over, would they? I'll have to look back at that. We'll look back at that. All right, chapter 5. Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, we'll continue on in chapter 5. So it was when all the kings of the Amorites who were on the west side of the Jordan and all the kings of the Canaanites who were by the sea heard that the Lord had dried up the waters of Jordan. So at this point, everybody's heard about this one too, and that word spread fast. They heard that the Israelites are crossed over the Jordan. So they've heard the Jordan from the waters of Jordan from before the children of Israel until we had crossed over, and their heart melted. And there was no spirit in them any longer because of the children of Israel. So at this point, they're already fearing, they're scared to death of these folks because they know God's doing his work through them and for them and showing the world what they're capable of. And now they heard that they crossed over the Jordan, but not just crossed over it by boat or bridge, but the thing dried up and they crossed over. And they're like, oh Lord, he is working for them still. They're still serving him. He's still showing his might to them. So they hear this and they're like, oh no. Oh no. So the fear of everything's going around. This is at that time the Lord said to Joshua, make flint knives for yourselves and circumcise the sons of Israel again the second time. So Joshua made flint knives for himself and circumcised the sons of Israel at the heel of the foreskins. And this is the reason why Joshua circumcised them. All the people who came out of Egypt who were males, all the men of war who had died in the wilderness on the way after they came out of Egypt. For all the people who came out had to be circumcised, but all the people born in the wilderness on the way to Egypt had not been circumcised. For the children of Israel walked 40 years in the wilderness to all the people who were men of war who came out of Egypt were consumed because they did not obey the voice of the Lord, to whom the Lord swore that he would not show them land which the Lord had sworn to their fathers that he would give us, a land flow of milk and honey. And Joshua circumcised their sons, whom he raised up in their place, for they were uncircumcised because they had not been circumcised on the way. So they did a quick circumcision.
Joshua was not a Levite. Numbers 13 and 8. So
Mm.
he was from the tribe of people.
Okay.
He was from a different tribe.
He was from a different tribe altogether. Okay. Well, that answers that question. So, what was the tribe again, Brother Delmer? What was his tribe again?
He was from the tribe of Ephraim.
Ephraim.
That would have been back. Let's see, that would have been Joseph's.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so he's out of the tribe of Ephraim. So they did a quick circumcision before they went on, and that would have been because it explains why. Because while in the wilderness, they didn't circumcise, and so now they're at this point. God's like, hold up, do this real quick, And Joshua's doing so. And I imagine it's not the best, probably, especially if you're older, it wouldn't be the most pleasant experience. But they went ahead and got that done out of the way while they were on that side of the Jordan. All right, verse 8. So it was when they have finished circumcising all the people that they stayed in their places in the camp till they were healed. And the Lord said to Joshua, This day I have rolled away the reproach of Egypt from you. Therefore, the name of the place is called Gilgal to this day. Now the children of Israel camped in Gilgal and kept the Passover on the 14th day of the month at twilight on the plains of Jericho. And they ate on the produce of the land on that day after the Passover, unleavened bread and parched grain on that very same day. Then the manna ceased on the day after they had eaten the produce of the land, and the children of Israel no longer had manna, but they ate the food of the land of Canaan that year. So they continue on to get that manna, which the Lord started when they were in the wilderness. They were getting that manna until they started eating into the Canaan, which God promises once, I'll provide for you until you get over here, because the land's already ready for you. So technically, He still provided for them. He just no longer gave them manna. All right. Okay. Does anybody have any questions or comments about what we read so far? Okay, we'll continue right on. Verse 13 says, And it came to pass when Joshua was by Jericho that he lifted his eyes and looked, and behold, a man stood opposite of him with a sword drawn in his hand. And Joshua went to him and said to him, Are you for us, or are you for our adversaries? He said, No, but as commander of the army of the Lord I have now come. And Joshua fell on his face to the earth and worshipped, and said to him, What does my Lord say to his servant? And the commander of the Lord's army said to Joshua, Take your sandal off your foot, for the place where you stand is holy. And Joshua did so. And it's kind of funny, even though he didn't get a burning bush, there was a lot of repeats of what Moses went through. Like Moses was on holy land, they told him to take off his sandals. They told Joshua the same way. They parted some water, some form of water, or stopped it to where they crossed dry land, same thing. So God was kind of like repeated what we did for Moses, what He did for Joshua. In a way, sort of, even though there's some little small changes here and there, I've noticed.
Joshua's name was Oshia,
Oshia,
and then it changed to Oshia something.
Yeshua.
Joshua. Moses changed his name to Joshua.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Oshia, Yeshua. All right, okay. So now we have the commander of Lord's army here. All right, chapter 6 is, Now Jericho was securely shut up because of the children of Israel. None went out and none came in. And the Lord said to Joshua, See, I have given Jericho into your hand, its king and the mighty men of valor. You shall march around the city, all your men of war. You shall go around the city once. This you shall do 6 days. So God tells him, well, at this point, I think a lot of, I guess from a humanly standpoint, you're looking at this Jericho. It's got tall walls. I imagine they're, pretty tall. Imagine that. So you're probably thinking of siege tactics. How long can you starve them out? Or is there a way to get in? Is there a way to cross over? You're thinking of that. God tells them something totally different. Don't you see? They have everything shut up. They're scared to death of us because they know what I can do for you. Because you're following me, because I'm going to provide for you. I want you to walk around the city once a day for 6 days. And most people will think, well, that's kind of interesting. We're not going to do anything. But he's going to explain. And the 7 priests shall bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark. But the 7th day you shall march around the city 7 times. Well, at least you get your steps in that way. So they 7 times, and the priest shall blow the trumpets, and it shall come to pass when they make a long blast, ram's horn, and when you hear the sound of the trumpet, that all the people shall shout with a great shout, and the wall of the city will fall down flat, and the people shall go up, every man straight before him. So God's told him his whole tactic. God presented to him, this is what I want you to do. Walk around the city once a day for 6 days. 7th day, you're going to get your steps in 7 times around the city, and then I'm going to make the walls fall. So that was what he explained to him, which is, from a human standpoint, you kind of see this as like, I don't think this is going to be possible, but everything's possible through God. So verse 6 says, And Joshua the son of Nun called the priests and said to them, Take up the ark of the covenant, and let 7 priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horn for the ark of the Lord. And he said to the people, Proceed and march around the city, and let him who is armed advance before the ark of the Lord. So it was, when Joshua had spoken to the people, and 7 priests bearing the 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the Lord advanced and blew the trumpets. And the priests who blew the trumpets and the rear guard came after the ark, while the priests continued to blow the trumpets. Now Joshua commanded the people, saying, You shall not shout or make any noise of voice, nor shall a word proceed out of your mouth until the day I say to you, Shout. Then you shall shout. So he had the ark of the Lord circle the city, going round at once. And when they came into the camp and lodged in the camp, then Joshua rose early in the morning, and the priests took up the ark of the Lord, and the 7 priests, bearing 7 trumpets of ram horns before the ark of the Lord, went on continually blowing with the trumpets, and the armed men went before them. But the rear guard came after the ark of the Lord, while the priests continued blowing the trumpets. And the second day they marched around the city once and returned to camp. So they did 6 days. So they're doing what God told them to do. He's like, circle it once, don't make a sound, just let the trumpets do their thing. Go back, we'll lodge, and so forth. So they did it for 6 days. Does anybody have any questions or comments about any of this so far? Okay. And we're about to see God once again do his work through them through miraculous ways again. And it says, verse 15 says, But it came to pass the 7th day, they rose early about the dawning of the day, and marched around the city 7 times in the same manner. On that day only they marched around the city 7 times. And the 7th time it happened, when the priests blew the trumpets, that Joshua said to the people, Shout, for the Lord has given you the city. Now the city shall be doomed by the Lord to destruction, it and all who are in it. Only Rahab the harlot shall live, she and all who are in her house, or in the house, because she hid the messengers that we sent. And you, by all means, abstain from accursed things, lest you become accursed. When you take of the accursed things, and make the camp of Israel a curse, and trouble it. But all silver and gold and vessels of bronze and iron consecrated to the Lord, they shall come into the treasury of the Lord. And I guess he's referring to these cursed things, idols, something that they probably worship, something to draw you away from God is what he's referring to. So, and he also made it quite clear that any gold, silver, bronze, iron goes in the treasury of the Lord, which means they're not keeping any of it. And you'll see, and we're about to see. I think if people start trying to keep stuff themselves and things, I think this is when it starts. But we'll see. All right. So verse 20 says, So the people shouted when the priests blew the trumpets, and it happened when the people heard the sound of the trumpets, the people shouted with a great shout, that the wall fell down flat. And then the people went up into the city, every man straight before him, and they took the city. And they utterly destroyed all that was in the city, both man and woman, young and old, ox and sheep and donkey, with the edge of the sword. And Joshua said to the 2 men who had spied out the country, Go into the harlot's house, and from there bring out the woman and all that she has, so that you swore to her, as you swore to her. And young men who had been spies went in and brought out Rahab, her father, her mother, her brother, and all that she had. So they brought out all her relatives and left them outside the camp of Israel. But they burned the city and all that was in it with fire. Only the silver and gold and the vessels of bronze and iron they put in the treasury of the house of the Lord. And Joshua spared Rahab the harlot and her father's household and all that she had. So she dwells in Israel to this day, because she hid the messengers whom Joshua sent out to spy out Jericho. And then Joshua charged them at the time, saying, Cursed be the man before the Lord who rises up and builds a city, Jericho. He shall lay its foundations with his firstborn and with his youngest, and he shall set up his gates. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his fame spread throughout all the country. And that so far is what happened to Jericho. Does anybody have any questions or comments about anything throughout this event?
He just beginning to use Joshua like he did Moses.
Mm-hmm.
And he made in the eyes of the people who he was.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't Joshua that got his fame, it was God who
Exactly.
taught people about to listen to him.
Exactly. he did what Joshua did what God told him to, and everything worked out well on their part. They actually kept their promise with Rahab and her family as well, and she remembered the promise as well and did what she was told to do. And so all that, and the thing is that Jericho was not being built up again. Jericho was not going to be inhabited as far as we can see here. So Jericho's gone. it's gone.
They allowed it to be fortified again, didn't they?
No, they did not. All right, we're going to chapter 7, and it says, verse 1, but the children of Israel committed a trespass regarding the accursed things. So yeah, I was right. So not too long after this, they started trespassing. For Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, and the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, took of the accursed things. So the anger of the Lord burned against the children of Israel. So even not too long after they were told not to do these things, somebody in the tribe did. It's their human nature, but somebody did. They were warned, and then somebody did it anyway. So now verse 2 says, now Joshua sent men from Jericho to Ai, which is beside Beth-aven, on the east side of Bethel, and spoke to them, saying, go up and spy out the country. So the men went up and spied out Ai. And the return of Joshua said to him, do not let the people go up, but let about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up and attack Ai. Do not weary all the people there, for the people of Ai are few. So about 3,000 men went up from people, and they fled before the men of Ai. And the men of Ai struck down about 36 men before they chased them from before the gate of Shebarim, and struck down on the descent. Therefore the hearts of the people melted and became like water. So they go to Ai. They're like, oh, we got this. There's going to be a few people. They go up, and they're the ones running from Ai. And now they're about to find out why they were, because, like I said, remember, the Lord's anger was burning against them because someone took some accursed things. They're about to find out real quick what had happened. So then Joshua tore his clothes and fell to the earth with his face before the ark of the Lord until evening, and he and the elders of Israel, and they put dust on their heads. And Joshua said, alas, Lord God, why have you brought this people over Jordan at all, to deliver us into the hand of the Amorites to destroy us? Oh, that we had been content and dwelt on the other side of Jordan. O Lord, what shall I say when Israel turns its back before its enemies? For the Canaanites and the inhabitants of the land will hear it and surround us and cut off your name from the earth. Then what will you do for your great name? So the Lord said to Joshua, get up, why do you lie thus on your face? Israel has sinned, and they also transgressed my covenant, for which I commanded them, for they have taken some of the cursed things that have both stolen and deceived, and they have also put it among their own stuff. Therefore the children of Israel could not stand before their enemies, but turned their backs for their enemies, because they had become doomed to destruction. Neither will I be with you anymore, unless you destroy the accursed from among you. Get up, sanctify the people, and say, sanctify yourselves for tomorrow, because thus the Lord God of Israel, there is an accursed thing amongst you, thing in your midst. O Israel, you cannot stand before your enemies until you take away the accursed thing from among you. In the morning, therefore, you shall be brought up according to your tribes, and it shall be that the tribe which the Lord takes shall come according to the families, and the family which the Lord shall take come by households, and the household which the Lord takes shall come man by man, and it shall be that he who is taken with the accursed thing shall be burned with fire, and he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, because he has done a disgraceful thing in Israel. So Joshua's already, he's like, why did this happen? You know, what happened? What gives? You know, we were doing so well. What did we do? Or why are we even over here at this point if we're going to fall to these guys? And God told him, he's like, get up. Get up. Someone amongst you has done something, has sinned against me and transgressed against me. And the things that you told them not to get, they have kept it, and it's amongst their own things right as we speak. And he says, you're not going to be able to face these guys until you take care of this issue, which means you take these accursed things out and get rid of them, and the man who sinned against me is going to be punished. So, got to make it quite clear. So now, he's told him, you check through your tribe, check through the family, check through each man, which God already knew who it was, but he wanted them to thoroughly check, because he knows they have amongst their own stuff. It's amongst them. So that next morning, so Joshua rose early in the morning and brought Israel by their tribes, and the tribe of Judah was taken. he brought the clan of Judah and took the family of the Zanites, and he brought the family of Zarites, the man by man, and Zabdi was taken. Then he brought his household man by man, and Achan, the son of Carmi, the son of Zabdi, the son of Zerah, of the tribe of Judah, was taken. Now Joshua said to Achan, My son, I beg you, give glory to the Lord God of Israel, and make confession to him, and tell me now that what you have done. Do not hide it from me. And Achan answered Joshua and said, Indeed, I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel, and this is what I have done. When I saw among the spoils a beautiful Babylonian garment, 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold, weighing 50 shekels, I coveted them and took them. And there they are, hidden in the earth in the midst of my tent, with the silver under it. And Joshua sent messengers, and they ran to the tent, and there it was, hidden in his tent, with the silver under it. And they took them from the midst of the tent, and brought them to Joshua and all the children of Israel, and laid them out before the Lord. And Joshua and all Israel with him took Achan the son of Zerah, the silver, the garment, the wedge of gold, his sons, his daughters, his oxen, his donkeys, his sheep, his tent, and all that he had, and they brought them to the valley of Achor. And Joshua said, Why have you troubled us? The Lord will trouble you this day. So all Israel stoned him with stones, and they burned them with fire, after they had stoned them with stones. And they raised over him a great heap of stones until there to this day. So the Lord turned from the fierceness of his anger. Therefore, the name of that place has been called the Valley of Achor to this day. Does anybody have any questions or comments about any of that? Chapter 7.
Go against what the Lord says to do.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be trouble.
There would be trouble, exactly. It's just it's not too long after they told him not to take these things and do these things, or he coveted those things, he desired them, and he took them amongst themselves.
His sin come upon him,
Mm-hmm.
his wife, his children, and all.
Mm-hmm.
We were all stoned.
Amen.
Yeah, according to my reference here, the value of that gold and silver that he took was about $612.75. So he committed a sin over over $600.
That he has. Was it really worth it, in other words? Because not only that it resulted in them, but also it affected the whole Israel. It affected the whole Israel, all of Israel. It didn't just affect them, and they had to take care of the issue. And it talked about a Babylonian garment. I have a little side note here. It talks about a costly ornate robe of Shinar, beautified by colored figures of men or animals, woven or done in needlework, and perhaps trimmed with jewels. And the word is used for a king's robe, in other words. So it's got a lot of jewels. It's got a lot of design. Somebody's did a lot of hard work on this Babylonian theme. So when he's talking about this beautiful Babylonian garment, chances are that someone in a higher up status may have wore this.
It wouldn't matter if it'd been $2.75.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The only thing that shows that a man's responsible for his wife, his children,
That's right.
Mm-hmm. Yes. He's responsible for all that he has and for his family. And that's an example of that right there. He's responsible for all of those things.
You've heard people say, I'm not hurting anybody but myself when they do something. But this shows that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
You know that at this time at least, he was responsible for what he did, and it also affected all of his family.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it affected him, his family, and even all the way up to the whole body of Israel. It affected everyone. And he was responsible for all that. And he was...
cost 38 men their lives.
Mm-hmm. That too. I didn't forget to mention that. It costed 38 other men's lives. Exactly. So, that's definitely shows that he was responsible for things he probably didn't have to be responsible for. He would just follow what the Lord told him to do so. All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments? I'm about to run out of time, and chapter 8's a lengthy one, so